There is a kind of silence at sea that does not belong to weather. It is not the silence of calm. It is the silence of a room that someone has just left. On the morning of December the 4th, 1872, 600 miles west of Portugal, a merchant brigantine moved across a cold Atlantic swell with 2 sails set, 2 more half-furled, and no hand on her wheel. Her course was uncertain. Her speed was wrong. Her name, painted in faded white across the stern, was the Mary Celeste. She was sailing herself, and she had been doing so, the record will eventually suggest, for at least 9 days. She was a 282-ton American brigantine, rebuilt, refitted, and considered seaworthy. On the 7th of November, 1872, she left Pier 50 on the East River in New York under the command of Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs. Briggs was 37, a Massachusetts-born mariner, a man with a Bible in his cabin and a clean record at sea. He did not sail alone. With him on this voyage were his wife, Sarah, his daughter, Sophia, who was 2 years old, and a crew of 7. 10 souls. In the hold beneath them sat 1,701 wooden barrels of denatured industrial alcohol, bound for the merchants of Genoa. The cargo was insured. The papers were in order. The route was unremarkable. For the first 18 days, the voyage was unremarkable. The last entry in the ship's log was made at 8 in the morning on the 25th of November. The handwriting is steady. The position is plausible. The weather is described without alarm. The Mary Celeste, at that hour, was passing the Azores. After that morning, the log goes quiet. There is no struggle in the record, no final note, no torn page. The next words written about the Mary Celeste are not in her log at all. They are in the log of a different ship, written 9 days later, by a captain who could not understand what he was looking at. The Dei Gratia, Canadian flagged, was bound from New York to Gibraltar that same season on roughly the same Atlantic track. Her master was Captain David Morehouse, a man, by some accounts, who had dined with Briggs in New York not long before either ship sailed. On the afternoon of the 4th of December, Morehouse's helmsman called out a sail to the southeast. Through the brass of a long spyglass, the Dei Gratia's officers watched a brigantine yaw on her own course, sails contradicting one another, no figure visible at the rail. Morehouse closed the distance. He hailed her. No one answered. 3 of his men were sent across in a small boat. They climbed aboard a ship that was, in almost every measurable way, intact. The deck was wet but unbroken. The rigging was sound. The pumps worked. Below the waterline, she had taken on roughly 3.5 feet of water in the hold, which was significant but not catastrophic for a ship of her tonnage. There was no fire. There was no blood. There were no bodies. The galley was orderly. The stove was cold. There was food in the stores, a 6-month supply, untouched. There was fresh water. There was bedding, neatly arranged. There were the personal effects of a family that had been living in this small floating home for almost a month. In the captain's cabin, on the desk, lay an open ledger and a child's slate.
But the ship's papers were gone. The cargo manifest was gone. Briggs's chronometer was gone. His sextant was gone. The single ship's lifeboat, the one piece of equipment designed to carry souls away from her, was also gone, lifted clean from its davits, the ropes by which it had been launched still trailing. In the hold, of the 1,701 barrels of alcohol, 1,692 were full and sealed. 9 were empty. Those 9 alone among the cargo had been built of red oak, a wood more porous than the white oak of the rest. Whatever had been inside them had escaped, slowly, into the closed darkness of the hold, at some point in the 18 days of the voyage or in the 9 days after the log fell silent. There is no way from the wood alone to say which. The Dei Gratia's men sailed the Mary Celeste under a skeleton crew into the harbor at Gibraltar. There, in 1873, the British Vice Admiralty Court convened a salvage hearing. The man who led it was Frederick Solly Flood, Attorney General of Gibraltar. Solly Flood was thorough, suspicious, and disinclined to believe in mysteries. He suspected at first mutiny. He suspected the alcohol cargo had been broken into and the crew had killed the captain in a drunken fit. He suspected Morehouse and Briggs of conspiring to fake an abandonment for insurance. Months of testimony were taken. The ship was inspected. Stains on the deck were tested and proved not to be blood. The barrels were counted and counted again. The crew of the Dei Gratia gave their evidence, and their evidence held. In the end, the court issued no verdict of foul play. It awarded the salvors a sum considered modest, the kind of sum that is paid when a court is not satisfied but cannot prove what its dissatisfaction is about. The Mary Celeste was returned to her owners. She sailed again. The case file did not close. In the century and a half since, the file has been reopened many times. The most cautious modern hypothesis is that the alcohol cargo, fermenting in the heat of the equatorial track, vented vapor into the hold. A small ignition, a spark from the galley flue, a static discharge, could have produced a sudden, harmless-looking pressure flash through the main hatch. Frightened, Briggs may have ordered the lifeboat lowered, the family and crew tied to the ship by a single line, intending to wait at a safe distance. The line, the theory says, parted. A second hypothesis proposes a waterspout, a maritime tornado, that appeared to flood the ship faster than her pumps could clear and drove Briggs to the same decision. A third points to seaquake activity in that latitude, capable of jolting a hull badly enough to alarm an experienced crew. Each theory is plausible, none is proven. Each requires a chain of small, specific accidents to align in exactly the right order. This is what the record does not say. It does not say what the weather was on the morning of the 25th after 8 o'clock. It does not say who was at the wheel. It does not say what Sarah Briggs was doing, or whether her daughter was awake. It does not say which of the 7 crewmen first saw whatever was seen, if anything was seen at all. It does not say where the lifeboat went. Searches of the surrounding waters in the weeks that followed found nothing. No wreckage, no oar, no body.
The Mary Celeste was discovered roughly 400 nautical miles east of her last logged position. That is a distance a slow-sailing brigantine can drift on prevailing winds in 9 days. It is also a distance across which a small open lifeboat carrying 10 souls, including a 2-year-old child, would need a great deal of luck to survive. Records of nearby shipping in that latitude in that window were searched. No vessel reported taking on survivors. No shore reported a landing. No body in any port of the Western Mediterranean or the Eastern Atlantic was ever identified as belonging to anyone aboard. 10 people walked or were taken off a ship that was still floating. They left behind food, water, dry beds, the toys of a child, and a course that, with one hand on the wheel, would have brought them safely to Gibraltar. The official record in 1873 ruled no signs of foul play. It did not rule what had happened, it only ruled what had not. Some files, when you set them down, feel finished. The pages line up, the witnesses agree, the light of the lamp falls evenly across the desk. The Mary Celeste is not one of those files. Her ledger sits on the corner of this desk, where it has sat for 153 years, and it does not close. The candle burns lower, the ink dries. The names, Benjamin, Sarah, Sophia, and 7 men whose surnames the manifest still preserves, wait quietly for the rest of their sentence. If the unfinished histories haunt you the way they haunt me, there is another file on the shelf beside this one. The candle is still good for a while yet.